Hey gang, welcome back to Grumpy's Great Outdoors. In our last video, the one about the Weber kettle and all the different devices and add-ons you can use, I'll put a link to it right here. We talked about the slow and sear. Well, now's the time, as promised, we're going to use the slow and sear for this cook, and we're going to do a brisket on the Weber kettle. I'm looking forward to this. If you can't tell, I'm excited about it. It's been a minute since I've done one of these on the kettle. So if you've never done one, we're kind of in the same boat together here. We'll get through this together. It'll be fun. So our schedule for this is going to be tonight, which is Tuesday night. We will season and trim the brisket tonight, put it in the fridge until tomorrow morning, and put it on the kettle. Depends on when I wake up, probably 6, 7 o'clock maybe. Put it on and let it cook till probably when it's done. It'll be probably 9 o'clock or midnight tomorrow night. Our intention, our plan, is to cook it or serve it, on Thursday at lunch. If you ever cooked a brisket before, you know a plan is never going to work out. It's just not going to happen. It'll either be done real early or really late. But I've got a warming cabinet, which saves the day for me every time because it holds so much meat, and they can save it or rest it for the long rest, 12 to 16 to 18 hours, even 20 hours if I wanted to, at 150 to 160 degrees. And that's what I'll do with this brisket. I'll have it in the warming cabinet until we're ready to serve on Thursday. So in the meantime, tonight we're going to get it trimmed up and get it seasoned, and we'll be back in just a minute to do that.
Well, friends, I lost audio when I was recording the section here on the trimming and the seasoning of the brisket. So I got to do a voiceover here, which is no problem. But we're looking at a 12-pound brisket. It's choice grade, came from Sam's. So it's not a bad brisket. Not a lot of fat content, though. Wish we had a little more fat content, but that's the way it goes typically with these kind of briskets. You're looking at a choice brisket. It's all they had when I went to pick it out. There just wasn't very good prime ones there. So I got this choice one. Now, this front edge is just a mangled mess. Now, we like to have normally a thumb's width. That's kind of the rule of thumb, no pun intended. And we're going to do some cleaning up there on the sides and get some of that heavy fat. Now we'll flip it over to the back side and look at it. And we got the mohawk here. We're going to cut that mohawk off. Of course, all this meat we're going to save, guys. We freeze it, and we use it in smash burgers or sausage or just regular hamburgers. So we'll use all of this meat that we get out of this thing. That's for certain. Well, some of this tallow we can render down and use at other places. So it's not really the greatest brisket. The trim here is not great. Looking here at the Dexter knife is what we're looking at. There'll be a link in the description. You can get one of these. They're pretty average price, but they're really easy to sharpen, and they're overall comparatively they're not real expensive. So great knives to have around, and I love to trim with these things. Here we're getting rid of this hard fat, this decal fat that is not won't render down at all. So we got to get rid of that, and we're looking through the whole. This is the bottom side of the brisket. Actually, we're going to smoke it with the fat side up, and this bottom side, this side, the lean side down. When you're trimming this fat, guys, it's very important to actually to slice and peel and trim with the grain. It makes it much easier to remove it. Now you want to obviously when you slice the brisket to eat, we'll go across the grain. But when you're using when you're using a knife on the brisket now, you'll do it with the grain. Much easier to cut it and slice it off. So get rid of some of the silver skin. The silver skin tends to want to draw up and it makes it curl up, and it's just not a real, and you can't get seasoning through it. So we're going to remove all this type of silver skin that's here, and we'll make sure that we get rid of all that. Here I'm going to look at making my curve cut. We're going to cut the front edge of this off to get a little bit thicker meat on the front edge. So we make it aerodynamic. We're going to cut, and I just kind of trace out where I'm going to cut. Makes it much easier to do when I go to actually cut it. I can kind of see where I'm going to go. So I curve off that edge, and you'll see me cut through that and come around the backside too. Now we'll save all this meat too. This is a great piece of meat here, and we'll use it in burgers or probably burgers most likely. We'll separate the fat from the meat, and that make some good burger meat out of it. We'll round off that edge there a little bit more. Let's see. We left some fat on the front here on the bottom. I mean, so we want some fat content. It's very important to do that. We'll flip over the back side. We'll cut this mohawk off pretty much first thing because we know we're not going to keep it. We'll get rid of some of that hard fat. It's not conducive for like making things work real well. We don't want that at all. We'll trim off this here at the point. We'll go around and smooth that out pretty good. And round off that edge there again. So we're just doing some basic trims. You can see where I've trim some other fat off and let some bald spots, which is going to happen. Don't let that bother you. Here I talk about this decal fat. I didn't really get it down as thin as I want to. It's easy to do, so I used to dig that whole thing out, but when I do that, it leaves a big gash in the side of the brisket. It doesn't seem to really good for good even cooking. So I like to just kind of make it smooth with the rest of the brisket, not cut it all the way out. Just make it smooth with the rest of the brisket. So here we're going to go ahead and start seasoning. We'll season with salt and pepper, and I want to actually end up using some Lowry's as well, of course. And the Lowry's is kind of not a secret ingredient, but it's a very common ingredient in Texas. It's not talked about very much. But this is a Texas style seasoning. Salt and pepper, 2 parts pepper, 1 part salt, and then about half a part of Lowry's. But I don't mix the Lowry's in. I do the Lowry's on my own, and I put just a light dusting, as you'll see here. Kind of looks like pollen, doesn't it? Hope it doesn't taste like pollen, but it doesn't. Just go ahead and gently cover the brisket with pollen, sheesh, with the Lowry's, and we'll go along the edge here with it as well. Just make a real light coating, dusting of it, so to speak, because I don't want it too strong. Lowry's can be pretty strong if you're not careful, so we don't want to have too much of it. That's for certain. And we'll flip it over here and we'll do the back side as well. I'll go pretty quick here because there's no point doing the same thing on both sides. So I will just don't bore you with all of that, but you'll see where I start here and do some seasoning with the salt and pepper. Now it's completely seasoned and it's ready to go. We're going to put it on this wire rack. Do the wire rack because I want to have I want the air to be able to get to the top and bottom when I put it in the fridge. I put it in the fridge all night here, and we'll leave it there for the night before we get ready to smoke it in the morning. So there's a good look at it, and
Well, good morning, gang. We're out here at the Weber Kettle, and we're going to get our brisket on shortly. We're looking at some foggy weather this morning, which is nice. It's about 52 degrees, which is about our high for the day, I think. But it's been raining this morning. I think, ease off as the morning goes on. Right now, it's not raining at all, so hopefully that'll be the case most of the morning. So here's our setup for the morning. We've got our Weber Kettle, of course. We have our drip pan, and we have our slow and sear on this side. We're going to put some charcoals in that far corner over there, about 6 or 8, maybe even 10. Get them lit up. Add some water to the water trough that's along the edge here, and then we'll actually have the rest of the slow and sear filled with charcoal as well. We're aiming for about a 250 to 275 temperature, and if that's okay, if we get a little higher, get a little lower, somewhere in that range would be ideal. We'll use our top and bottom vents to regulate that temperature, but we'll bring the brisket out here shortly and we'll get it going. All right, guys, back in a minute. Okay, gang, here we are. We get the charcoal set up, and we get the little tumbleweed in there all light right now. We'll get that going. Once we get the tumbleweed going, and we'll get some charcoal on it. Being careful not to smother the tumbleweed out with charcoal. But we'll get 5 or 6 charcoal going there. Tumbleweed's going well, and so we'll take some charcoal and put it on top of the flame to get it going a little bit. I'm using B&B charcoal. I'm using briquettes, as you can tell. Some people like to use lump. I like briquettes for this case. I like lump more often than not, but I like briquettes for this kind of thing because it's more consistent. And it just burns a little bit better for me than the slow and sear for me. My experience has been that, but a lot of people use lump, so whichever your preference is will work fine. But we'll let this get going. We'll put some water in it and we'll bring the brisket out. Just be a few minutes. Be right back, guys. All right, folks, we've got the charcoal going. The first few I put in there I've actually ashed over, and I've added more charcoal and some wood chunks in there. It's post oak we're going to use. I'm a big fan of post oak with anything beef. So I'll bring the brisket out in a minute. We're actually going to fill the water trough up as well. I'll get some hot water. You want hot water in that because otherwise the cold of cold tap water to a hot slow and sear could make that thing warp. So we just want to put some hot water. They recommend boiling. I don't get boiling. I just got to get super hot tap water and pour it in there, and it holds about a quart, I think, exactly, and we'll put it in there, and then we'll bring the brisket out and put it on. We'll get the temperatures up. Actually, we'll get the temperature up first after adding the water, and then we'll go from there with the brisket. Back in a minute. Okay guys, I want to show you real quick. I've got the grate on. I've got water in the trough, and it does hold 1 quart exactly. I've got a temperature probe in there. I'll try to zoom in so you can see on the far side over there to gauge the temperature inside the kettle. I'll put my temp spike, which you see over here. When I get my meat out here and bring the brisket out, I'll put the temp spike in. The temp spike actually does a great job with both ambient temperature as well as meat temperature. But the ambient temperature is a little slow to read. It takes a while for it to get acclimated. So, but the internal temperature thermometer is fantastic. So I'll put that in, and that's why I have that other thermometer over there, just to kind of double check the temp spike. I use my Inkbird thermometer for the ambient temperature for now. So we'll be out in a minute with the brisket. I just want to get you up to date with what we're doing so far and where we're at. All right, guys, see you in a minute. So folks, one thing I want to let you know, that the smoke you see now obviously is not good smoke. That's just too much smoke. You want a thin blue smoke. And this is just the initial charcoals getting lit. Maybe even a piece of the wood chunk I put in there. Once all that gets acclimated and kind of burns down and starts burning slowly, that smoke will change. And that's why you're waiting to put your brisket on. You don't put it on right away. You let temperature get up to where you need it to be. Let this initial smoke burn off. You have a lot less, more of a good smoke, as opposed to this heavy dark or heavy white smoke. That's just not good. It's just too much. Your meat will get real rancid. So you want to wait and let this burn off. You'll notice our temperature on the Inkbird is actually getting up. It's moving up. We're at, I hope you can see, that's 104 and moving. So we're going to wait till about 180 to 190 and start turning these, closing the vent on the bottom down just a little bit. And then kind of land like we're landing a plane. Just come in slow to that 225, 250, 275 if we have to range. We kind of glide in there and kind of stop right there as we adjust the vents, both initially with the bottom ones, and then we'll kind of maybe close the top one a little bit as we get closer and closer, kind of fine tune the last few degrees we want to get to. So, but that gets you where we're at right now. I just want to let you know about this smoke and where we're standing as far as this really rough smoke right now. That's not what we want, but that's normal. That's very typical. That's why you wait to put your brisket on till you're at temp, and the initial smoke's kind of burned down. And then you put your brisket on, or whatever you're cooking at the time, on after this first initial smoke gets kind of out of the way. So finally, we'll be back in a minute with the brisket, I promise, in just a minute. Okay, folks, finally it's time. We're putting the brisket on. It's right at my temperature inside is right at 230. It's still climbing. I'll crank that down just a little bit to keep the from going too much higher. But you see my smoke's much better, much more calm, much more like a light blue smoke. That's what you want. But I'll put the brisket on now, and remember folks, when you put a brisket onto a grill, a smoker, or a Weber kettle, however you put it on there is how it's going to cook. Now that sounds funny, but make sure you shape and form it up the way you want it, because that's how it's going to stay. And that sounds weird, but sometimes you'll get some weird edges and sides, but so kind of just tuck it in, make it plump it up a little bit, so it's going to shrink quite a bit, but you'll try to prevent that from happening as much as you can, kind of form it the way you want it. So, but we'll go ahead and get it on. I'll go around, and remember guys, it's hat 30 in the morning, so bear with me. And the way I look, it's just the way the morning is. So, hi. So we're going to put the thicker side towards the fire. Just because it can probably handle a little bit more heat than the rest of it. So I'm going to form this up a little bit the best I can to kind of get it the way I want it, so when it cooks, it'll be shaped the way we want it to be shaped. Now I'll put my temp spike in, and I'll put it kind of in the thickest part of the flat. These temp spikes, you've got it, probably can't see it guys, and I can't get to you to zoom in, but there's a little line right here. You want to make sure that your temp spike goes into that line. And so I'll kind of go at an angle, because I don't want to go all the way through the meat, of course. And I'll go at an angle here, and I'll try to get it right in the middle of the brisket. There we go. Hopefully it's just right there in the middle somewhere. That'll give us a good internal temperature reading. So there we go guys, we're putting it on. I'll keep you up at, I think it's actually 9 o'clock, a little later than I want it to be, but it's 9 o'clock in the morning. We'll keep the timer up. Oh, and these temp spikes, you got to keep this gauge near the thermometer for the reading to happen. So that's one thing people complain about. They don't realize they got to have this thing near the actual temp spike. So leave that there for you can have the Wi-Fi reading, of course, on your phone, and leave that there so it does that. So right now we're fully open up here. We're fully open, or no, we're a little bit down on the closed a little bit on the bottom to kind of slow things down as it started getting to 200, 215. I cranked it down just a little bit. But nonetheless, we'll leave it open and we'll go from there. Once we get temperatures back up again after having that lid off, we'll kind of crank it back down a little bit and kind of regulate from there. All right, guys, back shortly. All right, gang, we're going about 3 hours so far. Right now, the temperature inside the smoker is at 265. The internal temperature on the meat is about 145. So I thought I'd take a real quick look at it and see how things look. Looking at the, I might kind of see it here a little bit. See that little pool of fluid there? I told you about that last night. Try to get some of that out. It's looking really good. The bark is starting to set up, which is really good. Like the feel of it. The fat's not quite rendering at all, but it shouldn't yet. A little too early for that. I think I will spritz it. This is spritzing with half water and half apple cider vinegar. And I want to spritz it a little bit because this side's getting a little bit tough. Make sure we don't have any problem. I think I am going to rotate it just to save this side a little bit and put this towards the heat now. So wash off some of that rub. That's what we don't want to have happen. That's part of it. But moving right along, guys. Like I said, we'll get plenty of charcoal left for at least another couple hours, I would think. But we'll come back in a couple hours and check it again, and we'll kind of keep an eye on that charcoal as well. So we'll keep running about anywhere between 250 and 275, and we'll check back probably another hour or two. All right, gang, we're back out here looking at the kettle, and you'll notice the temperature's gotten down. I hope there's not a glare there too bad that you can read that. 247, so the temperature's dropping on me. I have actually taken the charcoal and scraped it to one side. I'll show you that now. Bear with me. I'll do it by myself. The charcoal's, I'm scraping it to one side, so I may add a few more charcoals here. The internal temperature is about 165, 170. This is looking really good. It's got a good bark on it. Really, the fat is getting rendered. I'm very happily with that. We're probably going to wrap it soon with butcher paper, but I want to give you an idea of what it's looking like right now. I mean, it's really, you'll see that my finger kind of squishes in there. Hopefully you can see that. Means that the fat is rendering very well. I'm very happy with that. So I'm going to probably wrap it here just a few minutes, add some more charcoal, and go from there, guys. We'll see you in a bit. All right, folks, here we are. We're going to go ahead and wrap the brisket in our butcher paper. I've got a little bit of my spritz out here because I'm going to spritz the paper so it actually was more pliable, easier to bend and fold. I've got some Wagyu tallow that I always use in my briskets at this point. Wrap it in there, put some on the paper and put some on the brisket. I'll wrap it up, put it back on the smoker, the kettle, same way as off, putting the fat side up, put it back on there till it finishes, which will be a little over 200 degrees. We don't really go by temperature. We go more by feel, but we'll know it'll be close to 200 when it gets done. So maybe still a few hours for that to be done, but we're actually, it's right at 4 o'clock. So we started at 9, so we're 7 hours in. We're about 165 to 170 degrees internal. Usually I like to wait to 180, but usually that's when the fat feels like it's breaking down, or rendering. But now it actually feels pretty rendered. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it now. We go by feel and that kind of thing as opposed to time or temp. So we'll go ahead and spray some of this spritz on here just to make the paper more pliable. And I may even spray some on the smoker too, on the brisket. And I'll get the brisket off here. Excuse me for walking in front of the camera. Bring it over, set it right here actually, because I want to put some over temperature. I want to put some tallow down right where I'm going to have my brisket coming in. I'm going to put some on the brisket as well. So I'm content with that. I'm going to put a whole lot. That's actually a pretty good amount. But the reason why, guys, it's a choice brisket, so I want as much juice and much fat as I can put on this thing because it's not got a lot in it naturally. So, and the one thing I do like about this probe that I've got in here is I can wrap it up now. Don't have to refine the spot. It's right in the same spot it's always been in. So we'll put this on, pull this paper up. This is always hard by yourself, as y'all know if you've done any of these. It's not the easiest thing in the world to do. Make it the way you want to do it. Now we're back side up like we want, and we'll fold this extra underneath. Like that, make it good and tight. And we'll put it back on the smoker now. Our probe is right where it needs to be, so we know we've got the temperature the same. Now, in all honesty, I could take this brisket into the house, guys, and so I'll turn it this way so you can see the grill, and put it in the oven. Put it on 275 and be done for the night. You can really do that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that at all. You can save charcoal that way. You can save wood if you're smoking on a offset wood stick burner. But nonetheless, we're going to keep it on here just because we're going to keep it pure tonight. We're going to go the whole way through this smoke with it on the kettle, and so you can see the whole thing. So, but we're looking probably another 3 or 4 hours, probably I would think, until it's done. Maybe not. We'll see. We'll watch the temperature on the probe I've got in there, and we'll go from that. So, but I'll be back when we have something to look at. Right now, this is pretty much it. So hang tight. See you soon. All right, gang, here we are. We got it pulled off the kettle, put into this foil pan, and we are let it sit here to about 165 degrees, letting it cool down before we put it into the warming cabinet, which I'll take it back outside to do that. But we got it done, it's about 8:30 p.m. on Wednesday night. We got it done about 11 and a half hours. We'll have a rest for about close to 18 hours, 16 hours, which is fine with me. That'll be perfect in that cabinet. We got the cabinet warming up now. It should be close to 160, 165 now, and we'll probably end up letting it sit there till tomorrow. So we'll cut it open about noon tomorrow, and we'll see how we did. All right, guys, see you then. All right, guys, here we are. Now's the time to see how we did and see if our hard work paid off. It's time to get the brisket out. But hey, before I do that, I want to remind you that after this clip, when we finish here, there's a clip on the warming cabinet I told you about. Be sure to hang around for. There's no extra charge for that clip. I just put it on the end for you guys to watch. So be sure and watch that warming cabinet clip to get an idea where this thing's been all night. So here we go. We're going to pull it out and see how we did. Well, looks pretty juicy so far. That's a good sign. Feels really good. Oh my gosh, it feels really good. Let's see how we did here. There's our probe. We'll pull it out. My goodness. That feels great. Awful jiggly. Some juices all over it. Thank you very much. Plenty of juices there. And we'll take this and pour it over it as well. We got a little extra here. I don't know if we'll pour all these. This is quite a bit, but we certainly don't want to lose it. Look at that. Alright, so we got our flat, our point over here and our flat here. We'll give it a cut right down the middle and we'll see how we did. See how much it shrunk, guys? Told you how much they shrank. It's amazing. I'll try to cut it right in the middle here and see how it goes. Here we go. It feels fantastic. Here comes the money shot. Oh yeah. Look at that, guys. We hit the jackpot on this one. I'm not going to squeeze it because I don't like people do that, but you don't have to squeeze that. That looks fantastic. Very pleased. You guys, look at that smoke ring. Looks fantastic. So let's cut some slices here now. Remember I haven't talked yet about, but I don't, you got to cut across the grain. This grain's running this way. So we're going to cut a little bit of an angle here. That we'll go on this end, actually cut this tip off. And this is the flat, and typically the flats are going to be a little bit less juicy because there's just not enough fat in there. And this was a choice, like we said, it's a choice grade. So let's see how this does. I got a little too thick there. Let's see how this does. Okay, I'm going to go from this end too, see if I can get a little better slices here. There we go. Looking good, guys. We're going to go each end here. I'd say it looks pretty good. Really good, doesn't it? There you go. I like the way that looks. Very pleased. Now we're going to try to cut this point open. Cut it in half. Oh yeah, just cutting right apart. Get a slice or two. You know, you cut your points a little thicker. Those are a little more fatty. We'll cut these burn ends off. There's not a lot of burn ends on this side here, but we'll cut them off. See if we can't get a couple of these going. But this is one of the best bites in barbecue, that fat right there. As you can see, the point side. Very pleased with this, guys. Looks very, very good. So we'll try a bite of this point here, or flat here. See how we did. Here we go. I took too big a bite, but I don't care. Very good, guys. Very, very good. Took too big a bite, excuse me, but it's so good. Very pleased with that. As you can tell, excuse me, it turned out very good. Very pleased with the moisture level, the tenderness. Excuse me for talking my mouthful, but it's so good. So guys, that'll wrap this one up. Very pleased with it. I hope you guys can feel comfortable enough to try a brisket on a new Weber kettle. If you would, just be sure and like and subscribe to the channel. And hey, be sure and hit the notification bell, because next smoker is going to be beef ribs on the offset smoker. So join us at the smoker and we'll do that together. See you guys then. Thanks much. Hey folks, I wanted to show you this warming cabinet I told you about earlier. This is it. It's a Metro brand TC90 model. I'll zoom in here a little bit, come up a little closer and show it to you. This is a scale that I use for when I want to keep something warm. I'm usually on 3, 4, or 5, somewhere in that range, depending on what I'm warming it, keeping warm. A brisket I'll usually keep between, around 4, somewhere like that, 3 or 4. But it's got a little step down here at the bottom that I'll step on, if I can hold it and show you the inside. It's got a number of shelves for me to be able to place a number of different things in there, which is great. Now, this thing looks really nice, and it is very nice. I got it for a steal. The gentleman I bought it from was very, very kind. He had a pizza truck, I think, and he ended up not having enough room in his truck or trailer to keep this thing. So he ended up selling it to me for a mere fraction of what the retail cost, even used value, was. Just an incredible price. So by all means, guys, I found this on Facebook Marketplace. Look for things like this on Facebook Marketplace, restaurant equipment auctions, that kind of thing. You'll find great deals sometimes, and that's what I did with this. And so it's literally been one of my best purchases, just because it gives me the flexibility of not knowing when something might be done. Timing wise, I could actually keep it warmer for a lot longer. The 12-hour rest is a big number that you hear about with briskets and restaurant businesses. So it goes as far as 18-hour, 20-hour rests. So it's been a real steal for me. I've been real pleased with this thing. It's very easy to maneuver. It's on wheels, and it's keeping my garage. And it's just been a great thing to have. So keep your eyes out for things like this. And I don't have a business of any sort or anything. I do some catering for friends and stuff like that, but have actual business, no. But this thing's perfect for what I use it for. My wife can proof her rolls in there on Sunday lunch. We just have a great uses for it. So keep your eyes out for something like this, and maybe you'll get lucky too.